This is an ad from BetterHelp Online Therapy. We always hear about the red flags to avoid in relationships, but it's just as important to focus on the green flags. If you're not quite sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify those qualities so you can embody the green flag energy and find it in others. BetterHelp offers therapy 100% online, and sign-up only takes a few minutes. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. Every now and then, you'll see Pittsburgh spelled differently, without its H. Maybe it's a Kenny Wood's Pittsburgh Plunge, a really old book, or your out-of-town friends' text messages. But where did this inconsistency come from in the first place? We're bringing back a conversation between host Megan Harris and local historian and author Virginia Montanez to learn more about how our city got, lost, and eventually reclaimed the consistent use of our H, and why it's taken so long for everyone else to get our spelling right. It's Tuesday, February 18th. I'm Sophia Lowe, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
Virginia, I feel like it's pretty common knowledge where Pittsburgh got its name. William Pitt, British Earl, Prime Minister. I don't know how we got the burg, though. Like, did other cities have that, the H? I'm thinking of like Sharpsburg, for example, or Saxonburg or Harrisburg.
Yes and no. Here's why yes and here's why no. It's very similar. You will find instances where Gettysburg has an H, where Sharpsburg has an H, where whatever, but it's all going to come down to who is actually spelling it. So at the same day, you might have one newspaper calling it Sharpsburg with an H, another with a G. I don't exactly know what their city charters would say, but it's just like you're just spelling it the way that your language, the way that you think it should be spelled. Very similar to center RE. What's wild is in 1891, one of the newspapers pointed out, this I think will really illustrate, put people in the proper mindset of how to understand this. There were in Pittsburgh two brothers, a doctor and a lawyer, and their last name was Burley. And one of them spelled their last name with an L-E-Y, and one of them spelled it with an L-E-I-H.
Okay.
So this is how you want to view all of this. It was a matter of personal preference.
Personal preference, but also political ideology. You know, you write in your piece for Pittsburgh Magazine that different newspapers of the day sort of chose based on how conservative or how liberal they were, whether you use the H or not, H being more conservative. What about like official documentation? You know, you mentioned city charters. How did Pittsburgh's dictate our spelling?
Well, that's what's really interesting is we have documents that have both. We even have Pittsburgh City Council meetings, minutes, and I'm talking official minutes. Within the official minute book, it's spelled both ways. So, you know, we might have been incorporated with an H, and then that, like, as a city, it has an H, or as a borough, it might have an H, and then so it's just, this is why there was a debate for so long. People all had a document they could point to. They had a map. They had an official map. They had something that had their choice of spelling on it.
Yeah. I feel like in the modern era, like we take a lot of pride in our H. We're very particular about it. We want to make sure it's included. Did people, you know, back at the inception of our city, in the mid 1700s, even into 1794, when we were incorporated as a city, did folks care? Did they just do what they wanted?
People always did what they want, but I will tell you, they did not care. The people that seem to care are the men of letters, the newspaper men, those people that want to paint themselves as intellectuals. Those people may have started caring, I would say late in the 1800s, like 1870s. But essentially, no, Pittsburghers did not really care. Again, they just picked the one that worked with who they were.
It wasn't a big point of pride in the way that it is today.
Not initially. Not when it was taken away. It was not a point of pride when it was, and I'm putting that in quotes, taken away, because I will argue it was not taken away.
Well, yeah. So tell us about that. What I feel like we've all heard this legend, right? Of Pittsburgh was spelled with a GH from time immemorial, and then someone took our H away. Tell us the myth first, and then tell us the real story.
The thing is, as a historian, I believed the myth, and that's why I can speak to this and say, I get it, Pittsburgh. I know what you've been told. What you've been told is we lost it. We didn't lose it. What happened is the Board on Geographic Names was formed essentially because there were all of these things. This wasn't just about GH towns. There were a lot of different proper names where this was kind of an issue. And so the federal government is like, for our maps, for our purpose, as trains are coming and we need timetables and federalized transportation, we have got to decide how we are going to spell things on our maps. So they form this, and they essentially say in 1891, okay, these are the rules that we're going to follow. They never said, this is what you have to do. This is what your city needs to do. You need to change it. So nothing changed in Pittsburgh at all when that ruling came down. If you were spelling it with a GH, you continued to. If you're spelling it with a G, you continue to.
That's so different than the narrative all of us have been fed, which is that the big bad federal government came in and they took away your H. They stole it.
Took it. Like stole it away in the night, and everything changed overnight and people were in an uproar. That's the myth. None of it is true. But I believe the myth, and I started the research because I wanted to prove the myth. I went in with that bias and I couldn't find anything that proved it.
Ready to conquer your next big challenge? Make 2025 your medal year by signing up for the Dick's Sporting Goods Pittsburgh Marathon weekend of events. Happening May 3rd and 4th in Pittsburgh, it's more than a marathon. Choose from a marathon, relay, 5K, and more. And if you prefer walking, join the popular half marathon walking division. The Pittsburgh Marathon isn't just about running. It's about community, celebration, and pushing yourself to new limits. Over 300,000 fans will be cheering you on through the streets of the Steel City. And the hardest step is the first one, signing up. A registration today is a commitment to your future self. Join the excitement by visiting thepittsburghmarathon.com. Use CityCast15 to save 15% off any event registration. That's thepittsburghmarathon.com. And again, use that code, CityCast15, for 15% off any event.
Today's show is sponsored by the Frick Pittsburgh Museum and Gardens and their newest, still upcoming exhibition. Mark your calendars for artist Kara Walker and her Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War annotated. If you don't know Walker's work yet, this is a perfect time to acquaint yourself. Her contemporary artworks are on display all over the United States, literally San Francisco to New York, and soon right here in our own backyard. She has won a MacArthur Genius Grant. The Washington Post even called her this generation's Andy Warhol. She really brings the hype. Now, I have only seen pictures of this exhibition, so I'm going to be just like most of y'all, checking this out for the very first time. But we should look forward to big, big artworks. Walker's bringing 15 large-scale prints where she uses these striking black silhouettes over old Harper's Weekly engravings to depict the racist and violent reality that often gets glossed over in traditional historic narratives. Walker uses silhouettes in so much of her work. She says they really say a lot with very little information, just like a stereotype. The exhibition, Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated, opens soon at the Frick on March 1st. Get tickets and learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Maybe get in better shape or eat healthier, save more money, travel somewhere new. What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I'm having such a good time learning Spanish on Babbel this year. I'm taking a trip to Mexico City in the spring, and Babbel is giving me the Spanish foundation that's going to make my trip so much better. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by more than 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks, or at whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in a new language, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. And one way they do that is with their own podcasts. I'm a podcast listener. I'm guessing since you're listening to this podcast, you are too. And I have been getting ready for my Mexico City trip by listening to Babbel's conversational podcasts. There's a short conversation you listen to, then an instructor talks you through what happened, and then you listen again, and then you catch everything when you listen that second time. There's also a great read-along transcript, too, which I love. The one I did today was with Maria and Carmela trying to make dinner plans, but Carmela is so busy. She's way too busy with work and yoga, but finally they agreed on brunch on Saturday. Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other universities continue to prove that Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. So let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
I want to read one passage that you found. It was a Pittsburgher in a letter to the editor of the Pittsburgh Press. That would be Pittsburgh without the H at the time, who declared that the H spelling was passé and where's the whiskers of time. You collected so many interesting thoughts from folks over the years. I wonder if you might be willing to share a few of them.
Yes, I did find several, and you're going to hear me flipping through some papers here so I can find the ones that I printed out for you.
Virginia, would not be a conversation with you if you didn't have a binder or a pack of papers or something to fuss with while we talked.
I do thorough research, so I always have.
And we love you for it.
Yeah, I always have a collection. So as I went through I shared some in the column, but the ones that I did not share in the column, the Pittsburgh Dispatch, so this is local, keep in mind, the Pittsburgh Dispatch, Nellie Bly wrote for them. They hated the H forever and ever and ever. The Pittsburgh Dispatch refused to use the H. And they wrote in May of 1891, when we, quote unquote, lost the H, quote, everybody knows that the municipal name of the city has been Pittsburgh, with a G, all along, and only the blunder of some long-forgotten postal official has ever caused the name to be spelled otherwise. Unquote.
Said with confidence.
Right. So, everyone speaks with their whole chest with this. Whether it's, yes, I never found anyone that was like, we're not sure. It was always like, we know it's in blood somewhere how you should spell the city. Let me see. I want to find another one. So the Pittsburgh Daily Post in December of 1902. So here we are. It's 10, 11 years after we've lost the H. And they have an H. And later on, they have an H. But at this point, they do not. And they say, we shall quit bothering about how to spell Korea until some newspapers in this town learn to spell Pittsburgh. And again, they were against the H at this point. This is 1902. We're supposed to be in this uproar that we lost the H, and here it's 1902, and we have a newspaper saying, like, it's wrong. We never should have had the H to begin with. So
it sounds to me like at that point they were probably just tired of the fight.
Yeah, they definitely, yes, those literary people and those men of letters and those, journalists and intellectuals continued the fight, but it was more of a slow burn shift toward this popular opinion that we like the H. It's nostalgic. It's a callback to our Scottish roots, our old-timey roots, and we're still that way today. So it makes sense that as time goes on, over these 20 years, when we near like 1905, that's when things are like, okay, there's more people in Pittsburgh that want that H back, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, we lose the H. It's gone. It's selected for us, I guess, in some small way. Does mayhem reign? Do H's fall from the sky or from signs everywhere in town? Did we even have a lot of sign work at that point? What happened?
We did have sign work. No one changed anything. That's just the fact of the matter. It's not until well after this return of it in 1911, as things become more gradually shifting toward the H, that you'll see those things. No one changed their name overnight. No one changed their sign. No one changed their business cards or their letterheads or their billheads. And that's the big point here is we never lost it.
I mean, according to the U.S. government, it was gone for, say, 20 years. Who officially decided that it was Pittsburgh with an H again? Was that an us decision, or did the federal government just decide we don't care anymore, y'all do what you want?
So initially it was the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1905 that started the initial idea of, hey, let's bring back the H.
What an odd campaign to get yourself involved in.
Right. Well, they're the ones in charge of the timetables. So it does kind of make sense that the Pennsylvania Railroad, they were actually on the forefront of removing the H, and then they were actually on the front lines of bringing it back. Why? I can't be sure. But it was the Pennsylvania Railroad that initially in 1905 started a campaign to bring it back on their timetables and their maps. And then the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce picked up on it. And keep in mind that this is a time where Pittsburgh's identity is really being truly forged. We're getting our identity as an industrial powerhouse solidified. We're the steel capital of the world. So it makes sense that we're trying to set ourselves apart. And so what happens is the Chamber of Commerce starts this picks up the campaign, takes the ball and runs with it, and eventually convinces that same organization, that same board, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, to quote unquote return the H. Once again, nothing really changed overnight.
I feel like this entire thing is a narrative of Pittsburghers will call things what they want. They do not care what the official name is.
Yes, we know. Yes, that is exactly it. This is a perfect illustration that who we were is who we still are. Change the name all you want, but we're going to call it what we want, and we're going to spell it the way we want. It's always been this way.
Well, are there any spots in town, here still in the city or around it, where we can see Pittsburgh spelled without the H? I think the only one that I know of is maybe at the Pennsylvanian. You can see it in the brickwork and those big, gorgeous arches. But I'm wondering if any come to mind for you.
I can't think of any others really. But where I see that the H not being there mostly is in postcards and billheads and letterheads from the time. And the one thing you want to do is, if those have been very easy to research, is look at the dates when you see those G's and look how they do not align at all with the official loss or the official return of the H. It's just not going to often line up. That's where I see it the most.
What about you today? Do you have strong feelings about the H, or, I don't know, any associations with it at this point?
The good thing about me right now is I have the hindsight of not having hindsight. We all do. We don't know what it was like to have chosen how to spell it. But based on who I am, I feel like I would have been like the Pittsburgh Dispatch. I would have been on the side of the Daily Flag newspaper, which was like, it's a dumb letter, drop it next. I really think, weirdly, if I'm being honest with myself, I think I'm a G person and not a GH. Now I'm a GH person, obviously. I'm just saying, if this was me back then, I really think I would have been that person, it's a stupid letter, drop it.
We're really looking inward here. Maybe there's something we could all learn there, each of us deciding whether we too would have been a G person or a GH person way back when.
Right.
Well, Virginia, thank you so much. I feel like you always make us think about the world in unique and different ways, and often by looking backward. It's a really fun thing. Really appreciate all the work you're doing for us and for Pittsburgh Magazine.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you want to read Virginia's great reporting, you can find a link to her column for Pittsburgh Magazine in our show notes. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from around the city. Talk to you then.
Producer Sophia Lowe in the background here, popping in. Kennywood's lost Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Plunge both dropped the H. That's important context. Kennywood's honoring the old days, I guess.
But I remember being younger and believing that they misspelled it. And I was like, Mom, they spelled Pittsburgh wrong.
I'm sure generations of kids have said the same thing.